Hello and welcome to the CareersNow mentorship session on product development and research and development and product development. So CareersNow is Food and Beverage Ontario's new workforce development initiative for Ontario's food and beverage processing industry. And this program was launched to connect job seekers to employers in Ontario's food and beverage processing sector. We are delivering things like this, like the mentorship session, as well as job fairs, and people can also access free micro credentials, some free programs to add to their resume, to beef up their experience and their training prior to entering the industry. And as I mentioned, it's all free and can be accessed via careersnow.jobseeker.ca. So I will introduce our speakers, Christine, Redeemer, and Michelle. They will talk about their career paths, themselves, why they chose this industry, one by one, and then we'll have some time at the end for questions. You can write questions in the chat, and I will keep an eye on the chat and read them out, so we don't have a bunch of people talking at the same time, just to keep things clear. We will end at 5 o'clock. So if you have additional questions after that, I can certainly reach out to these three wonderful ladies afterwards and see if I can get some more information if you aren't quite satisfied with everything you hear today. So without further ado, Michelle, if you want to go ahead, that would be great.
Hi guys, nice to meet everybody today. My name's Michelle. I'm currently a student at Niagara College looking at a career in research and development in the food industry. I came into the food industry because, well, who doesn't like food? And to get to be part of the team that makes it sounded like a lot of fun. So here I am 3 years later running my own business in food, and I'm really happy to get to talk to you guys about my journey today.
So go ahead, tell us a little bit about, school and, continue on your sort of journey to today.
So I started at Niagara College a little over 3 years ago, taking the Culinary Innovation and Food Technology program. And it's been a lot of fun. We've looked at everything from regulations to product development to process flows and where our food even comes from, just in terms of supply chains and how to get it to the table. So it's been a very encompassing view and a really great program for anybody who wants to do anything in food. It's a great introductory course to how to get where you want to be in food. For me, that turned into a journey of entrepreneurship, whereas for a lot of my classmates, that ended up with career and product development in some major corporations.
Awesome. So tell us more about your own company. You mentioned you've started your own thing.
So I've started a business called Cool Chicks. We do dessert different. And my aim is to try and take the products that we all know and love that we've made at home or that maybe are really special to you and find a way of getting them to the rest of the world so they can enjoy all that same passion and love that went into the products you grew up with. Cool Chicks takes a lot of traditional thinking and kind of flips it on its head and adds that innovative aspect to it while still looking at a lot of the traditional values that go into food. It's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of support from some different people along the way. And most recently now I'm working with Venture Park to develop my product formally and hopefully get to pitch it to Dragon's Den.
Tell us about that. So Venture Park Labs.
Venture Park Labs.
For those that haven't heard of it.
So for those that haven't heard of Venture Park Labs, it is the food incubator program designed by Arlene Dickinson's through CBC's Dragon's Den. It's designed to help young entrepreneurs and students learn how to be entrepreneurs and to really take our ideas from an idea right through all of the process, the innovation that comes with developing a product, and teach us how to pitch and be ready to go speak to these businesses and say, hey, look at the idea I've come up with. Let's make it into actual product. And it's been a lot of fun working with them, learning a lot more about product development in ways that maybe weren't quite so obvious to me to begin with.
Awesome. I think people will have more questions for you. If you want to share anything else, like, feel free at this point. And then if not, then we'll move on to Redeema and hear her career story.
I think we'll move on to Redeema and people can ask all sorts of questions in a few minutes. This is a good introduction for everyone.
Sure. So my name is Redeema, and I'm just going to scooch on over so that you don't have to see my housemates walking around. I studied culinary science at Drexel University and graduated in 2019. And so I think, as Michelle mentioned, who doesn't love food, that was definitely one of the biggest motivators for me. But funny enough, the reason that I got into food science was because my junior year of high school, when I was in the full swing of taking, SATs and all that fun stuff, I had a sleepover at a friend's house and we were just having dinner. And so her mom asked one of those very typical mom questions of, oh, what do you want to do in college? And I said, very honestly, I have absolutely no idea. I really like chemistry and I really like science and I really like eating, but I don't see myself working in restaurants forever, but I like that. And she said, why don't you study food science? And I started laughing because I thought that she was just being almost mean and poking fun at me and saying, oh, haha, you like food, you like science, be a food scientist. And she responded like, I don't know why you're laughing. I'm a food scientist and my husband is a flavor chemist. And I was just baffled. I'm like, that's a thing? You can be a food scientist? You can be a flavor chemist? Like, what does that even mean? So it was just such an amazing conversation that was so, it was so unexpected. I did not go into that sleepover recognizing that I would have my future career path figured out in the matter of like a 10-second question that a mom asks. So that was amazing. And naturally, I asked her, okay, well, where did you study? And she said, Drexel University. So I applied there and I got in, and that's where I went. And so throughout my undergraduate experience, I was in a school that required co-op experiences. And what those are 6-month mandatory internships. And I knew that I wanted to do at least one, ideally all, in other countries. And I managed to do my first one at Campbell's Soup Company, working with their chefs. The second one that I did was internationally at a startup called InFarm in Germany. And over there, it was a vertical farming experience, which I had absolutely no experience in, but I wanted to learn more about the agricultural side of the food industry. And then my third co-op was with Aramark, who does like meals in cafeterias. And, I know a lot of colleges use the Aramark or Sodexo. So those are two of the big ones. And I worked with their dietitians and was making menus and just ensuring that the menus that were being created were not only appealing to students, but also met nutritional requirements that are set by the FDA. And then after college, I started in 2019 at Danone North America, where I am now. And so I work on, I was working when I had first joined on traditional creamers. And so those brands were International Delight. And now, as of, I guess about a year ago, I switched to the ready to drink coffee category, and I'm supporting Stoke Cold Brew and International Delight Iced Coffee. As an associate product developer, I forgot to say that.
That's awesome. Before I let you go, can you just kind of tell us a little bit about your day-to-day, what you do?
Absolutely. Sure. So my day-to-day looks really different. And I feel really fortunate that right now our office is completely open, but our company allows for a lot of flexibility. So I'm currently at home, but I was in the office yesterday. I'll be in the office tomorrow and Thursday, and then Friday I'll be at home again. So it's nice because I'm not commuting every day, which I don't miss that at all. But it's also great because I still get to see my coworkers face to face, which is something that I know a lot of us are really missing in this weird COVID pandemic environment. I have projects that are usually dictated by my marketing teammates. And so what'll happen is a marketing person will champion a project charter. So they'll say, I'll give a great example. International Delight Iced Coffee, we have a lot of great co-branded partnerships with other companies. How about a Reese's flavor, like the Reese's peanut butter cups? And so that was one of my projects. And so I was the one who was working with our flavor suppliers to really nail down how do I want this to taste? What is the experience that I want the consumer when they go to the grocery store and take this gable top carton home, when they pour it out into a glass? What do I want them to feel? Do I want it to be a really good balance of peanut butter and chocolate? Do I want it to be very chocolate heavy? Should it be more peanut butter heavy? What are they going to want? And so what I do in that process is basically answering that question, and through multiple rounds of development with our brand team, so the marketing folks, as well as the other teammates that I have, like my boss and R&I, we call it research and innovation instead of research and development. Just through tastings and going back and forth with flavor suppliers saying, this flavor is really good, but could you tone down the raw peanut note? We're looking for more of a peanut butter profile and not a raw peanut note. So a lot of that back and forth. Some of the not as exciting, but equally important aspects of what I do are cost savings projects. So a lot of my favorite cost savings initiatives end up being just inefficiencies that exist in our portfolio. So for example, if in Stoke cold brew at one plant, we're using one flavor supplier's flavor or something, and for some reason in our bag and box that somebody would get at a gas station or a convenience store, there's actually a different flavor being used for the same product. I look at that and I say, why? Why is it that we're using this is just an example, this isn't actually true, but like for a Stoke cold brew with vanilla, why is one using this flavor and the other using a different flavor? Could we harmonize that and have it be the same flavor so that the experience that a consumer is getting at a gas station versus in their fridge is the exact same? So those are my favorite types of cost savings projects. I'll be honest, cost savings it's not glamorous, but it has to happen. And it's really important to keep the business afloat. And so I think if you can find what excites you, and so for me, it's exciting to see how can we make this more efficient, then it helps a lot because it has to get done at the end of the day, even if it's not necessarily what I love spending my time on.
I hear you. And so that kind of leads me into you work with multiple people, multiple departments.
All the time, yes. So I work very closely with our brand partners, so in marketing, our finance team, because every time a project gets chartered, I have to know, okay, well, I would love to make the best product ever, but I need to know what the amount that I can spend towards it is. I can't have it be, oh, my dog is coming in. I can't have it just, there has to be parameters to ensure that I'm actually meeting those costs so that at the end of the day, we are making a profit on this project. And what else do I work? I work with procurement a lot. So oftentimes our procurement teammates in coffee sourcing and our flavor procurement managers, I'll be working with them for the same reasons to know, if I'm making a new Stoke product, how much money do I have for this entire formula? And how much money do I have towards the coffee in that? And then how about in the flavor in that? So I have to work with those teammates a lot. I work with our supply chain partners. COVID supply chain issues are something that every single person and business is feeling right now. So I feel like this is the first time that I'm ever really, really talking to supply chain as much as I am, just because there's so many bottlenecks. So it's kind of cool. Obviously this is not a great situation and I would just love for distribution to be seamless and perfect, but in this pandemic environment, it is affording a lot of just learning to see, why is this happening? What's going wrong and how do we fix it, kind of a thing. I'd say those are the people that I work with most often, for sure.
Very cool. Is there, now that you've seen other departments and you've got the background that you have in R&D, are there any other positions? I guess this will be a question that I'll ask everybody at the end, but just in terms of career paths, you came in the position you're in the R&D role. What could it grow into potentially? Not that you maybe even want to, but maybe you can describe the different roles that you could do if you wanted to.
That is such a great question. And it's funny you asked that because earlier today, our teammates in R&I and leadership actually just rolled out a career framework trajectory. So I think this is top of mind for everyone in R&I at Danone right now. I'm very grateful because earlier this year, this time last year, I expressed to my boss that I'm really interested in sustainability initiatives. And at this point in my life, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know that this is something of interest to me. And so I proposed being able to do a certificate course corporate social responsibility, just to see, is this something that I would maybe see myself in? Could I be a CSR manager one day, but then take the learnings that I have from product development and apply them to more sustainability focused role? And I think that is what I would like to do eventually. And I would say that the huge benefit of being in an R&D mindset is that I get to see so many different aspects of the business, as I mentioned, like talking to finance and ensuring that whatever I'm making is actually profitable, talking to procurement and seeing, is the coffee that we're sourcing, is it responsibly sourced? Are we getting it from farmers who are being paid equal wages? It's just a really great role for someone like me, who I know that R&D is something that I love right now and that I'll always love, but it might not be what I want to do day in and day out for the rest of my life. But I know that these learnings are really transferable.
Yeah, I mean, I think variety is the key, right? Everybody gets bored after a certain point. I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask, but let's go to Christine. And then I see other people have got a bunch of questions too. So we'll go over to Christine, and then I think just have a general discussion. I've got, as I say, I've got a bunch more. I'm writing notes, so thank you.
All right, hello everybody. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my journey. So I started my career path is not unlike, I feel like, most people who go into food science, unless you're lucky enough to have the sleepover at the friend's house to be able to help you kind of understand that this is a job that exists. So I did go to Guelph University, took food science, but I did not start in food science. I started in microbiology. Randomly chose it out of a book because I wanted to do co-op. So I knew that I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. And so chose microbiology. So my first work placement was in microbiology, confirmed the fact that I don't want to do microbiology. My second work term was still in microbiology area, but was for Cara Foods. So working in their airport food division. So this is the first kind of exposure I had to, what is this food industry? I don't have to do test tubes, or I don't have to get my master's if I don't want to. It's very applications based, very hands-on, very, you use it every day. So I think that was part of my first key thought. I always did really well in school, so I switched into food science, and then did a work term with a prof at Guelph, and then was like, oh, this is still not what I want to do. It's not fast-paced enough. It's not exciting enough. It's just not for me. And my last placement was with Kraft Foods that turned into Mondelez in their biscuit R&D division. So was a supporting role, working for a lot of the scientists that worked on the Oreos and the Chips Ahoy and all that sort of stuff. I thought this was a really, really cool placement because I was lucky enough that it was a global company. And I think hearing some of the discussion now, the fact that I could see people in R&D and packaging and product development and sensory and quality and regulatory and all these other roles that I didn't really understand what they were. So being able to interact with that, I think, was really interesting. And then being able to be in the plant, but then at the same time, you could be in the plant one day getting oil spilled on yourself, and then you could be in talking to marketing in terms of interacting with the business. So it was a really cool experience just to kind of, oh, there's all kinds of options. Like, I don't have to narrow myself down. I don't know what I want to do, but there's all kinds of options. So went back to school, and then my first job after graduating was working in quality for Kraft. Had a plant so I was working in quality for the food service coffee division. So I spent a year doing that. I thought that was, again, really cool from a technical side, understanding quality systems. And that was the first time then going through corporate audits and HACCP, and again, working with the operations team. It was pretty cool. And then partway through there, I had got a call back from somebody I'd worked with in the product development as my co-op to say, hey, there's a full-time job posting for R&D. Why don't you apply? So I'd say my, one point of, nuggets of wisdom or information to share is networking is just it's so key. There's always something you can learn from somebody. Never burn a bridge. Always try your best to try to, work with whoever you're working with, even if it isn't the perfect match. Because all of my career paths and changes that I've made through have all been very based on the fact that I had this co-op placement in university, and it's still, even the position I'm in now is somewhat influenced by that. So So Kraft Mondelez, I spent the vast majority of my career, so 14 years, I was there working through various kind of markets. So working for the Canadian market, I think the Peak Friends Lifestyle Cookie was my first product on the shelf way back in the day, and that was really exciting and really cool to see. I felt really, really privileged to work with some of the most patient scientists that I had ever met. And I still attribute a lot of my growth and knowledge from spending time with them. At the beginning of my career, I remember I had a lot of, supporting more senior scientists in their roles, a few individual ones, but most of it was sort of positioned with people who had been working there for 20 years, 30 years. So we were able to learn there. And I just found it fascinating. Like when trials failed, those were the most exciting to me, because it was like, why did they fail? What are they going to do next? Where would they go? Who are they going to talk to? What will make it work? It's just, there's so many different options. And I think that, you have to, the saying of you have to fail to learn. And I was lucky enough to have all kinds of those. And I remember with that group I spent a lot of time with, we'd sit for coffee from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning. And that was, again, some of the best experience in terms of education that I can get, where it was, okay, well, I couldn't make this cracker because of whatever. Oh, did you try this? Or what about this? Or did you talk to this person or this setting or things like that? So I think, again, from an advice standpoint, never think of yourself as too important. And in most situations, there's a ton to learn. Just continue to ask questions. I feel like that's just, it's something I would share as I was going through. So, so there, I spent majority of time just in regular R&D, supporting US and Canada, worked with cross-functional teams all the time, was able to travel and sort of learn about different cultures and different everything depending on what I was working on. The exciting places like Paris and Prague, but then also places like the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and deep South Mississippi and Ohio, and all kinds of places that you wouldn't choose to go to, but exposure to that was also really neat. So my last 5 years that I was there, I worked with the supply chain team. So that was basically looking at our existing assets from an equipment standpoint and moving around where we make things and how we make things. So ultimately that meant we were shutting down a couple plants and transitioning those SKUs into within the network or outside of the network, or installing new ovens. And so I think, my passion is very much anchored in being in the plant and working with operations and all the fun things that involves. So I think, again, as you're choosing your career, R&D is one of those ones where you have to be a little bit of a hybrid personality, where you have to go and work in the plant and you're going to get dirty and it's going to be weird hours and people are not always the happiest when they're there. But it's really cool. I love those interactions where you're looking at the mixer and you're like, I've tried everything I can try. I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? And it was kind of being humble enough to kind of say, I don't know everything, and you do this every day. So can you help me? So there's sort of that side of things. And then you're interacting with the marketing and the finance and that sort of thing. So if you're kind of, your front face is a little bit different in terms of how the language you're using and what they care about and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's, again, a cool aspect of R&D is that you're kind of all over the place and touch everything. I was told once that R&D is sort of like the middle of a wheel. So you've kind of got outputs into everywhere that you're going. I think that's very, very true. So, I loved all my time at Mondelez. I think while I was there, I also had 2 kids. So that's when I had my 2 daughters. So then all of a sudden my priorities changed and my willingness to be in the plant for 12 hours day in and day out changed. Didn't change my, my passion for innovation or anything like that, but just coming to a bit of a realization that, okay, I like this, but something's got to change because this isn't going to be sustainable. So, as you go through your career, your priorities are definitely going to, they change and they morph as they need to. And then embracing that instead of being worried about that is also a good thing. So while I was there, I got a call from somebody who I had worked with at Mondelez, was my manager, also worked with her when I was in my co-op placement. She had gone to Dare Foods as their director of R&D, and she was looking for a senior manager of product development to look after their crackers and fine bread portfolio. So this was interesting to me because I was missing a bit of the innovation side when you're doing supply chain reinvention, to match this cookie and match this cracker and do that sort of stuff. So getting back into innovation was intriguing and kind of looking after not only innovation, but renovation and continuous improvement and productivity. I thought was cool. So my biggest transition was not from a technical side. It was more from a culture side. So Dare it's a smaller company. It's family owned, medium size. I think that was more of an adjustment for me. I was lucky that crackers are crackers, more or less. So that was something that it was being aware of the differences in a company can be quite important in terms of the decisions that you're making as you move forward. Yeah, my advice is always leave for the right reasons at the right time, not just because something else is dangly and sparkly over here and it looks like interesting, it looks like it might be cool. The grass is not greener anywhere. Everything has its pros and cons and everything has its benefits and not. And so it just depends on how that aligns to what you want to do and how you enjoy your life. So, and then unexpectedly, after 4 years at Dare, I again got a call from a recruiter a few times. It was the middle of pandemic and COVID and kids were home from school and I was not interested in changing anything because I just needed some consistency, but the recruiter was persistent enough to kind of say, well, somebody put your name out there. Can you just have a conversation with me? I was like, okay, now you said that somebody had put my name out. I don't want to leave somebody like high and dry and not at least entertain that conversation. So I did that. And again, it was somebody who was a VP when I was at Kraft Mondelez that had moved over to Riverside, and they're looking to have folks from CPG companies that have a bit more experience. They were really, really young and innovative and growing company, and they grew really big, really fast. And then they had to course correct a bit in terms of, okay, well, now we've got all the stuff, all the shiny new equipment. We need to figure out how to make it work, how to run a project, how to lead a team, all that sort of stuff. So there was that was intriguing to me. Again, I wasn't looking to move, but they were able to match what I was looking for in terms of flexibility. And then as I got, I went through about 10 virtual interviews, which are terrible. Like, they're terrible. You don't really get a good sense of what somebody's like as you're talking to them on a computer. It's, I value the human interaction. So this was a little bit strange, but the more I started to talk to them, the more it was like, okay, something's a little bit different about this company. Like, it's their values are different. Their purpose is different. They really, they don't just have values on a wall. They're actually something that they care about and they ensure is kind of part of their discussion and how they move forward. So yeah, they cared about the people. They were making products that were out of my realm of knowledge. That was, yeah, they make cookies and crackers, but they're organic and non-GMO and gluten-free, which means everything that I knew from a technical side is out the window. And then they do protein bars and they've got pet food. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I know nothing. At least when I moved before, it was to a manager I had already reported to for 10 years. And I knew the technology, whereas this was a bigger leap because it was somebody that I sort of kind of knew from Mondelez, but not really. And it was all this new technology. But all of a sudden, I'm talking to them and their values of respect and humility and teamwork and ownership and sustainability and all that sort of stuff. I was like, this is okay. Like this, okay, there's something a little bit different here. So, and they're looking to grow. They're always paying attention to the trends. It's a really fast-paced, fun environment. And it's I'm leading a team now of 12 developers that care a whole ton about what they do and are willing to learn, and a lot of humility in terms of what we know, what do we not know, where do we have to get information. So I think it's just been a really neat experience. Again, I've only been there for 2 months, but feels like it's been a lot longer than that. Yeah, so I have a team of talented, driven, engaged people who want to make great products and do great things. And my aspiration at the moment is to help Riverside grow and thrive as they continue to get larger and continue to focus on their core values. So that's my spiel.
That was awesome. Again, I've got a bunch of questions, but one of the things you've mentioned and Ridhima did as well is working for a big company and then a small company. What would your advice be to anyone out there? I talk to students and grads a lot of the time, and that's a big question. Should I go to a big company? Will I be very specialized? Do I go to a smaller company and wear more hats and learn? Is there an advantage to working at a smaller company when I first start my career? All these types of things. What would you, Christine, what would your advice be on that?
Yeah, I think part of it depends on if you know what you want to do. I didn't. I was kind of new to what the food industry would be, so that gave me a good kind of wide breadth of what it could be. Can't speak on the other way, but the way that I did it, I found working for big and then going to medium and now in a smaller company, I found, I was taught the basics at a bigger company. So kind of the way you should quote unquote do things, with all the process and all the rigor and all the different departments and a lot more experts, I would say, in the area. So there's a benefit that way. I think that, you know, they're more established, so you're able to pick up information and learn that way. And then as I went to Dare, it also is a big adjustment. So I would say, like, if you're if you're happy in a big company, it doesn't mean you'll be happy in a medium or a small size company. There's a lot of kind of adaptability on my side, because I'm like, oh, I don't know about this, I'm gonna go talk to you. Oh no, nobody. I'm not gonna talk to anybody. I'm gonna have to figure this out on my own. So it's, you know, again, I whenever I do talks like this, it's your network is just so key in terms of just your path forward and your ability to reach out and say, hey, I don't know about this. Do you know anybody? Can you help me? I think so. Again, I don't know the other way from going to small to large, but from large to small, there's a lot of learning that you get. And again, if you don't know won't know what to do, it's a great place to go.
Yeah. Oh, I you know, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's great advice. And also you mentioned don't burn bridges. I mean, my goodness, the food industry is huge. It's also really small. You will come across people.
The number of times I've had to hire people, and it won't take me more than 2 degrees of separation from somebody that I know. That if it's in Canada, I can find somebody who knows somebody who worked with somebody or went to school with somebody. So it's important.
Yeah. Redeemer, do you want to add, or did we do so? Or Michelle, do you want to add around big company versus small company?
Sure, I can speak a little bit more to the small company side of things, because I started as an entrepreneur 10 years ago, 15 years ago, actually a little longer than that now. I'm aging myself, but I remember being a kid doing a lot of these kind of things for my neighbors growing up, and never really put it together that I was a food scientist long before I had ever gone to school for it. So looking at things from the smaller company side, there is a lot more hat wearing, so to speak. There is a lot more learning to be able to just roll with what keeps coming at you and learn how to learn on the fly, learn when you have to have your quality assurance hat on versus when you need to have your production hat on versus when you need to be the business owner and say, these are all great ideas. Unfortunately, this is where we are at, or this is what has to happen, whether that's where we want the product to develop to or not. And that's a big challenge looking at it from a small business perspective. It's a lot harder to get where you want to be when there's not as many people to reach out to. So it takes a lot longer because you are doing the research yourself. That being said, I feel like I've become a really well-rounded food scientist because of it. Even in my product development, I'm able to look at it from the quality assurance perspective and the costing and the business owner and the marketing all at once before I've ever cut into any product or spent any money. So that's definitely helped a lot in that side of it, where I've gone from small to big, and it's really helped in that aspect. And I've had to learn a lot more of the corporate ins and outs at this point in my career, in my journey, than before. So I find that's given me a very different perspective than a lot of other people that I've worked with along the way.
Yeah. Redeemer, do you have anything to add there? Big versus small, what would your advice be?
Absolutely. So when I was doing my co-ops at Drexel, I was really deliberate in trying to find experiences at both big and small companies, just because as a co-op, it was required. And so I wanted to be able to see all aspects and all sizes. So like I said, my first co-op was at Campbell's Soup, which is a huge multinational, multi-billion, all around the world kind of company. And then InFarm, that little vertical farming startup that had, I think, maybe 70 employees when I started. Now they're growing like crazy and actually have quite a big presence in Canada, which when I was there, it was just Germany. So I think that after having gone through co-ops and internships at different large corporations like Aramark and Campbell's Soup, and then much smaller startups like InFarm and Regrain, which is a startup based out of San Francisco, I realized that at least in the beginning of my career journey, I wanted to be at a big company. I think that I'm the type of person that really needs that kind of discipline and learning about the processes and how things, as Christine said, should be done, quote unquote, because even at big companies, it's not like everything is perfect and seamless. Even at Danone, we have a lot of work to be done to improve processes, but it's nice just to see in that, in the smorgasbord of processes that we have, what could be more efficient? What are the things that I feel are a little bit extraneous? How could we make this a little bit faster and be more agile like a startup? It's interesting because we're constantly told in Danone and other big companies, I'm sure, that you have to think like a startup and move like a startup, but you are bogged down by the processes of a big company. So I knew for myself that I would do better with that discipline early on in my career and just getting that very rigid, process heavy, like this is how things are done here kind of a thing. But I do think that at some point I would eventually like to move maybe to a smaller brand within our company that doesn't have as much process and is more of like a startup type environment, but that I knew I would be better with that, with the more process heavy first and then eventually transition. So for now, I'm liking being in a big company and with a lot of process, which doesn't sound very exciting, but for me, it was just really important and helpful. And I'm still learning a ton every day.
Great advice. I'm going to go to the questions here, just so people don't forget. Thank you, everyone, for writing in your questions. Thanks, Devon, for adding the link. So that's where you can access the job seeker portal. That's where you can access job fairs as well as additional mentorship sessions coming up. So we have a question from Kieran. I'm looking for universities, master programs that focus in the area of food science, research development. What universities would you recommend? I guess, Michelle, you want to go first? Actually, did you respond? I think you may have responded. There you go. I'll let you go first if you've got any other thoughts.
I did respond there in the chat, but from my perspective anyway, at least in Southern Ontario, Guelph University and Niagara College are two of the main ones that I've come across. There are a couple of smaller schools that have some food science programs, but Niagara and Guelph seem to be the two forerunners for the two programs. If you're looking for more of a hands-on application, I would recommend Niagara College. We do a lot more actual hands-on, in-process, in-person learning, whereas from what I understand of Guelph is a lot more of the theoretical applications of it. So it depends on where exactly you intend to further your career. If you're looking to continue education, I would go with Guelph. If you're looking to get a really good, solid base, to then go on to your career and build from there, I would recommend Niagara because you're more work ready leaving the program.
That's great advice. And we love the professors there, right? There's some amazing teachers over it.
Maybe I'm a little biased, admittedly, but Niagara has some of the best professors I've ever come across. They're professionals who actually care about the people that they're teaching, not just what they're teaching. It's because of them that I've taken such pride in what I do and have such passion towards wanting to make the food industry a better place. They've really helped me see that there is potential for our industry to get better and that it is up to us to be able to fix it by doing things like all of these lovely ladies have discussed, that there are challenges in what we do, but we love it anyway and know that we can make a better thing because of it. So
yeah, I love that. That's
comes
so
from
true.
Niagara there.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you just hit the nail on the head, coming into this industry to make a difference. I think, a lot of the time people are unsure, young people say, what am I going to do with my career path? What should I do to make a difference in the world? And I was like, join the food industry. There's so many options, you feed people, but you can make a difference, to the products on the shelf. You can make them more healthy, more nutritious. You can, as Radima mentioned, sustainability, there's so much work to be done there alone, food waste even, there's so many different pathways. I was going to have Christine just jump in and maybe talk a little bit about Guelph. I think you mentioned you were a Guelph grad. Maybe you can sort of talk about the differences that as opposed to what Michelle experienced.
Yeah, I'd say Guelph, again, I turned down doing my master's when I was going there in preference for going and starting work. But I would say a lot of great research that's being done. I know that Guelph also interacts a lot with the food industry in terms of support, and that a lot of your master's thesis and that might be very, very, very specialized. So it's like a fat molecule in an avocado or something. Like, it's very, very, very focused application. So I think if that's something that you enjoy and want to learn more about, it's definitely the case. I went to Guelph, and there's a ton of just great profs there, and they are working on the cutting edge research that then industry ultimately will take on and implement. They cross with industry quite a bit, just in terms of, like, there's wheat boards and there's collaborations with different members of the industry that they kind of facilitate, and they have professors that are focused on those specific areas. So different skill set, like Michelle said. It just depends on what it is you want to do and where you want to take your career.
And Redeema, you're stateside, but maybe you could, if we've got some people that are on the call that are not necessarily in Canada, do you have any other advice?
Yeah, so I think I'm actually someone who, it's right now that I'm trying to discover, like, what do I actually want to study in a master's? Do I want to have a master's? Because in this industry, I would say that you could get by just as easily with enough work experience to be in the same position, to be in the same pay grade as someone that has a master's. But if higher education is something, higher education is something that you actually want to pursue, there's always avenues for that. I think one thing that I've decided is that I don't want to pursue a master's until I know for sure exactly what I want to do. My undergraduate was very broad in that it was culinary science. So I had a great mix of both, like, technologically heavy or technical heavy food science classes, as well as culinary arts classes that really, they were broad in the best way possible. But I know that if I were to do something for a master's, I would want to be a little bit more focused in what I want to do. And I know, for instance, if wine science is something that appeals to you, like Cornell and UC Davis are great schools for that. If sustainability is something that you're interested in, UC Davis is another good one. If food marketing is something that interests you, there are some great schools in Philly for it, and same with the NYU. So it really just depends on what you want to do for that master's that would dictate where you want to go. And I'm currently trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the work experience versus education. That's a fine line. As a recruiter myself, I have supported students and grads, as well as more experienced folk that are looking to make a change in their career or just starting. And oftentimes, I think the mistake some people make is just keep going down the education path, and then they don't have the work experience, and then they're overqualified. They can't get their foot in the door. And then they're coming to a recruiter like myself saying, can you help me? How can I get in the organization? And then the hiring manager is saying, there's no hands-on relevant work experience. The food industry needs people that have got that. What would your advice be there? Like in terms of, I guess it ties into a question we have here. What certain skills to start in a field? Like, if you are pursuing education, what should you do at the same time?
Would you like me to take that one?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I did a lot of different jobs in undergrad, from working in restaurants and the front of house or back of house as like a cook, a line cook, or being a server and a hostess, to then also trying to find internships that unfortunately weren't always paid, but I wanted to get some sort of experience. And actually, I don't think that's true. I think all of my internships were paid, because when I would tell a company, yeah, but I'm like, I can't work for free. Unfortunately, I have rent to pay and groceries and such. But unfortunately, for some people, that's just not an option. And a lot of companies, I think, now are coming to realize that interns bring a lot of value and that they deserve to be paid as well. You can't get by with paying for your groceries on just, oh, it was great experience. Like, that doesn't always cut it. I used to scour the website Good Food Jobs, because a lot of those postings are for internships. And I found the internship that I did my senior year for Regrained through a professor who is heavily involved in the Upcycled Food Association. And I told him, upcycling is something that's really interesting to me, to be able to take it's like a one man's trash is another man's treasure kind of situation, where a byproduct in the beer industry, like the spent grain, is now becoming granola bars through regrained. And so that was something in a niche that I found really, really interesting. And so I had reached out to their head of product development and was just like, what can I do? Like, what can I possibly do to get my foot in the door here? And he's like, well, we need a social media manager. And I was like, cool, I will run your Instagram. Absolutely. And just to be able to get closer to that product. And I would also say that, I mean, Christine's already mentioned this, Nicole's mentioned this, Michelle's mentioned this, but networking is so, so key. And I feel like it gets this really bad rep. And I feel like when I was a freshman in college, it just felt kind of fake to be like, oh, hi, who are you? My name is Rhythima. Like, I want to learn about this. And I was like, oh, that's so uncomfortable. But when you realize that the people that you're networking with are also just people with stories to tell and advice that they want to share, it becomes so much easier. So a lot of times, during summer vacations, or even just when I was procrastinating homework, I would reach out to people on LinkedIn and just say, hi, I'm studying culinary science. I want to be in the food industry. I don't really know what I want to do with my life at this point, but would you be willing to have a 30-minute phone call with me sometime in the next 2 weeks that I can just pick your brain about your journey? And I would say 9.9 out of 10 times I got a great response, because people really like talking about themselves and they get really flattered when you say to them, I want to learn from you. And I think there's a really great sense of paying it forward, especially in this industry. As Nicole mentioned, it is so small. I mean, the food industry, the companies are huge, but the industry is tiny. And I think it's been really fun, because actually one of the people who I had reached out to my senior year just for advice and stuff, I'm actually working with him on a project now, because now he's at a company that Danone is interested in working with. And so I shot him an email and I was like, this is so funny how the tables have turned. 2.5 years ago, I was asking for you for advice, and now we're going to be working together. So it's a small, small world for sure.
Yeah, it's you will come across the same people, it's no doubt. So I have a question here. I want to make sure I get to the questions that I am being asked. Currently in my 3rd year of food and nutrition at Ryerson, I'm looking for a job that I can work and have hands-on experience of product development while attending school. Do you have any advice on getting a job in the field? Maybe Christine, as a hiring manager, someone that has a team, could sort of give some advice on, how to find a job, what you look for, and then obviously answer Ryan's question.
Yeah, I would say for when I'm looking to hire, I think it's I always interview, when we were interviewing co-ops with my colleague, it was always very different. He'd be looking at marks. I'm like, I don't care about marks. I'm looking for somebody that I can rely on, that people can get along with, that can interact with people in operations, as well as be able to attend marketing meetings. So I think from a co-op, I can't say enough about it. I feel like co-op, it just gives you, part of your requirements to get that degree is to be able to have job experiences, which I think is fantastic. So I do look for experience in the industry, and that experience doesn't have to be for a food industry company like the jobs that we have that we're talking about now. It's more, okay, well, if you just graduated but you worked in Tim Hortons at customer service, or you worked in a plant, so you're looking for those transferable skills that you can apply to a role like product development that is very versatile, it's very adaptable, it's very on the fly. No 2 days are different. So it's, I'm personally looking for somebody that isn't very rigid, isn't very serious, isn't very it's again, that those experiences don't have to come specifically from a job at a food company at this point in time.
I remember hearing someone say that I used to work with, that they were interviewing a new grad, and they said, what kind of experience have you had with food? And they said nothing. And then as the conversation carried on, they had worked at Fortino's, or one of the major grocery stores, and the produce section. And so, I think it was a guy who works at a pizza company, and he said, what do you think we put on the pizzas? You've said you have zero experience with food, yet you've been handling fresh produce. This matters. Put it on your resume, So it's always good to have these conversations to point out the obvious, I think, sometimes as well, that people don't necessarily think about.
Absolutely.
Michelle, do you have anything to add there?
I think you hit it the nail on the head when you said a lot of people don't consider, I'll call it a lot of entry level work that we do as young people, working in grocery stores, working at McDonald's, working in fast food. These are all such relevant food skills to have that we often bypass as just another fast food job or just a minimum wage job, when really these are highly skilled individuals that's gone through a lot of training that we often don't give the credit that we should to. And in turn, that leads us to think, well, maybe what I have in food isn't good enough. Maybe I don't know, maybe it's not good enough to put on my resume, when really it's such valuable experience that we don't get enough credit for a lot of the time. And that's one of the things that I personally hope to change in my career, is to show that these are highly skilled people. You try and figure out how to stack a pile of fruit. It's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I guess that's where people like myself come in to help people starting in the industry figure out how to, take that and put it onto a resume that makes sense and that will resonate with the hiring manager. You mentioned McDonald's. Both my sons worked at McDonald's. My youngest, 15, is working there now and is training others now. I'm so proud of him. And he's, he thinks it's just, a side job. I'm like, you have no idea how good the experience, is that you're getting. You're going into different departments of McDonald's. So you're on, in kitchen, you're on customer service, to Christine's point, you're able to communicate, conflict resolution, all these things. And Mama's in the right job where I'm going to help you take all of that and put it on your resume and get you living outside of my house at some point, hopefully in the future. We have another question here. I would say that the registered dietitians that I work with at Danone tend to be in our regulatory department. Oh, this is from you. Sorry, you answered it. Thank you. I see you answered it. That's awesome. I could keep chatting, and I'm gonna then miss the questions that are coming in. So yeah, when we're reaching the end, maybe I just go along one more time. Maybe start with you, Redeemer. If you could give maybe what's your best piece of advice you would share, something that you wish someone had told you back when you were starting out, whether it's how to find a job or we've mentioned, I think mentors is a great thing. Find a mentor, networking. What would be your number one piece of advice that you'd share with others?
Oh, wow. That is so hard to narrow it down to one. And since we've already touched upon networking, I can't emphasize that one enough, but I'd say a different one that I try to remind myself of often, honestly, is that whatever you are doing right now, you just really, really have to kick butt at that and think about the future and what you want to do next, but just ensure that whether you're in school, whether you're in an internship, whether in your first job out of school like I am, doesn't matter what you're doing, or in Michelle's case, starting your own company, you just have to do it really, really well, because then the people who eventually get to decide what happens in your career next in terms of promotions, or maybe like Nicole, you mentioned, I want to be in sustainability, the people who will be vouching for you have to first see that you can do what you're currently doing really, really well. So as much as it's fun to think about the future, you still have to remember that whatever you're doing right now, just kick butt at that.
I think that's great advice. Christine, if we could go to you, maybe more around advice for someone that's searching for a job. What can they do in terms of professional persistence? You never want someone that obviously wants to work with you, but what would they be doing wrong if they would just be turning you off altogether? And so what should people avoid doing, and what do you like seeing? Because I often say professional persistence is fine, but you can't stalk people either.
Yeah, I think it's reaching, having an organization like this that you're able to have a direct connect into some of the folks that might be in the position like I am, where like I do hire people, and I have hired people for the last little while. So it's sort of have people to vouch for you. The networking cannot be said enough. And don't be afraid, or don't feel like you have to cover like you said, like the Tim Hortons and the things like that on your resume are just as important as anything else. And things like you were the leader of, I don't know what club or something, just to be able to make sure that people understand what you're good at on a paper. And in terms of, yeah, I wouldn't stalk people, but I think if it's, if you're going to send a note to somebody, it's sort of, are you the right person? Is there somebody else I can reach out to? Is there somebody else I can connect you with? Because I'll often get resumes, and if they're not applicable to what I'm looking at, or it's not specific to product development, but maybe the processing team wants to take a look, then it's, I'm able to pass those on. So it's, I think that would be
it's the way that you ask. I have people approaching that will say, I need a job. And then there's others that will say, can you help me connect with someone? These are my interests. Who can I speak to? And these are 2 or 3 companies that I'm really interested in. Those types of approaches, I will definitely go to my LinkedIn or to my network and look and see who is in there that I can, connect the two, recommend a conversation. And that's been huge. It is about the approach, I think. And I see that someone asked about job boards. So thank you, Michelle, for mentioning Food Grads, which actually Food Grads was just purchased by Careers in Food. So that's exciting there. You'll be able to find jobs that are, employers that are hiring right now. We're actually tweaking Food Grads. So the sort of the 0 to 3 years experience jobs will filter through Food Grads in the next little while. So there'll be more jobs actually on the platform. But there's also sensory opportunities. There's one there right now. Bimbo Canada are looking for people that want to join a panel, and so they can send them products to try, right? Who doesn't like baked goods? So there's different things there as well. I worked at Starbucks, and that's redeemed. Thank you. Are there any sorry, I'm looking at the time. Are there any certificates you would recommend to build your resume? That's a tough one. That could be a while. Christine, you want to jump in there, or Michelle? Go ahead.
I'll build that one.
Yeah.
Really, in the line of certificates to build your career, find what interests you. Don't worry if it applies to a certain job or if it's exactly the right step. Find something that you enjoy and just keep taking the classes. You may not it may not seem like it all makes sense at the time, but coming from a student who's been a student while building my own business, I cannot begin to tell you how many random courses I have taken because it was a free class that I could take, or somebody said, hey, why don't you try this out? It's only going to cost you a couple of bucks. And those classes led to me getting grants, led to me getting scholarships, have allowed me to be a full-time student working minimal hours while building my own business and still have pocket money most days. To say that I've had a real paycheck because of it would certainly be a stretch, but a lot of these random courses that you find are the next step to meeting that person who can help you with the job. Like Christine was saying, network. You never know where it's going to lead you. Your food handlers is a great place to start with any food business. Look at your Smart Serve. These, again, are basic courses that won't cost you any more than $100, but show employers that you want to learn more. Even if you're not applying for a job in alcohol, having your recent Smart Serve shows that you want to learn, that you're willing to take the next class, that you're willing to try and figure out the next step. Another one that I would recommend is get your first aid class. We all work with knives. We all work in environments that lead us to have accidents on a regular basis. Have your first aid. It is so critical to being a leader, is being able to patch up your crew when something goes wrong.
Patch them up correctly.
You got to do what you got to do, and it happens sometimes. As much as we want to say that it's the safest industry and that we're doing everything right, we do have challenges that we have to look at. So having the skills that you need for when things go wrong is sometimes more important than having what you need when it goes right.
So final word, as we are really, really close to 5 o'clock. Michelle, go ahead. Tell us a little bit more about your company, as I know it's a startup and you can always need all the help, you can get at the beginning.
Well, I do appreciate that. My business is Cool Chicks, and I aim to do dessert different. anybody's interested, you guys can take a look at CHCH tonight. Actually, I'm going to have an interview aired at 6 o'clock that I did with the college today in regards to what I've been up to. And really, it's just been a lot of fun getting to speak to all sorts of different suppliers and farmers and everybody in food, like that's been said, to figure out exactly where in the middle of that wheel full of spokes do I sit. And I decided entrepreneurship was it.
And like you said, it's such a great industry. I chose to work, I started as a recruiter and chose this industry because of the people in it. People that want to feed others and nurturing. I mean, at the core, it's feeding people. And, you know, I can't say enough. I think everybody that I've come across in my career, you know, everyone's willing to help. You know, it's a really collaborative, you know, group of people. So
I've often said that food is my second family, and that the job that we work, we end up spending more time with them than our own family some days. And the community that comes from that is huge. And if we ever forget that as product developers or as scientists or as managers or leaders, that all we're developing is a product, then we've lost sight of what we're supposed to be doing. Because as leaders, we're supposed to be building better people. And in turn, we get a better product.
Well said. We'll leave it there. I can't thank you enough. Christine, Michelle, Redeemer, thank you so much for joining. Thank you everyone else who tuned in today. I won't do my usual spiel. Just if you can go to careers-jobseeker.ca, all the information's there you're going to need to find positions. Thank you again. It was without people like you willing to talk about your career paths. You know, people don't know what's out there until folks like yourself talk about where you've been, what you're doing now. So it's amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Really appreciate it.